Well, President Trump is expected to meet with the British Prime Minister later today, with ending the Russia-Ukraine war at the top of their agenda.
The meeting comes amid a deepening split between the U.S. and Europe over the issue and how a peace deal should be handled. Speaking ahead of the talks, British leader said that the U.S. must provide security guarantees to Ukraine to deter Russia from invading again.
NBC News international correspondent Kelly Cobiella joins us from London. Kelly, good morning. So how do we think President Trump will respond to this call for more security assurances for Ukraine? What can we expect?
Well, the British Prime Minister actually spoke to reporters on his flight to the U.S. yesterday, and he went into a little more detail on what that security guarantee would be. He said he wants the president to agree to a backstop guarantee. In other words, Europe would take the lead on securing a peace deal with troops on the ground. The British leader has already said that British troops would be part of that. They would defend Ukraine and deter Russia. But he said they would need U.S. air and logistical backup and would look to the U.S. for that. Now, President Trump had this to say about any potential U.S. involvement in securing peace in Ukraine. Take a listen.
I'm not going to make security guarantees beyond very much. We're going to have Europe do that because it's in, we're talking about Europe as their next door neighbor. But we're going to make sure everything goes well.
So does that include this detail, this backstop idea? We don't really know at this point. The president did add that the presence of American workers on Ukrainian soil, if this minerals deal goes forward, would provide automatic security. Guys, the British Prime Minister is expected at the White House shortly after noon Eastern today, with a news conference to follow around 2 p.m. Savannah, Joe.
Kelly, let's talk more about the minerals deal. The president said yesterday Ukraine's President Zelensky is going to visit the White House tomorrow to sign off on that deal. What do we know about this agreement and this visit, given the recent tensions we've seen between both leaders? Is this a done deal?
Well, so we haven't had any details made public yet, but some of this has sort of crept out in different forms. Ukraine's prime minister told Ukrainian TV there would be an investment fund for Ukraine's reconstruction, that Kyiv and Washington would manage it on equal terms, and Ukraine would contribute half of future proceeds from state-owned mineral, oil and gas resources toward that fund for projects inside Ukraine. Now, the New York Times has cited a draft document and is reporting that the U.S. would own the maximum amount of the fund allowed under U.S. law, but we don't know what that is, and not necessarily all of it. On top of all of this, President Zelensky has said it's too early to talk about money and that Ukraine needs security guarantees from the U.S. That isn't part of this deal yet. So we'll see how that plays out once the two leaders meet. Savannah, Joe.
Kelly, all this comes as relations between Washington and Moscow continue to thaw. U.S. and Russian diplomats are actually meeting again today following that initial gathering that we saw in Saudi Arabia last week. This time it's in Istanbul, Turkey. What are the focus of these talks?
Yeah, and this apparently is a working group meeting. The State Department says Ukraine is not on the agenda, that the meeting is about restoring diplomatic missions. Russia has echoed that message. Both sides have expelled staff and limited adding new staff at their respective missions over the past decade. A State Department spokesman said that the constructiveness of the talks will become apparent very quickly. His words. He said that either issues will get resolved or they won't, and we'll know soon if Russia is really willing to engage in good faith. And it's worth keeping in mind that Russian President Vladimir Putin said earlier this week that, well, he seemed to put the brakes a little bit on a quick ceasefire deal in Ukraine, saying that nothing could be achieved without restoring trust between Russia and Ukraine. This series of meetings, according or what the Russians say they hope will be a series of meetings, is supposed to move forward, make progress on that front, guys.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.